Today we're going to be talking about Ingrid Goes West and Tulip Fever, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt, Hatesy the AC. Hey.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
So true. I'm living, surviving.
You're surviving, yeah. That was a joke. I probably shouldn't joke about that, actually, but you've been having some AC issues at your home.
AC issues. In Phoenix, it's no joke, yo.
It's not. This time of year, you can have some significant issues from having AC problems in Arizona during the summer, but Who am I today?
Yeah, Joel. Everybody, I'm with Joel. My overdose from LaCroix Cunningham.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Probably they're gonna, if they ever come out with a study saying that LaCroix are really bad for you, then
I feel like that's
I'm gonna be eligible
soon.
for that study.
That's gonna come soon. It's gonna come about 5 years too late, and they're like, if you consume this much LaCroix, you might die. And you're like, I'm like way past that.
Well, the good news is if they do some sort of lawsuit, some sort of cross action. What do they call it? Cross action lawsuit or whatever.
Class action.
Class action, not cross action. Wow. Class action lawsuit. I would just rake in the cash. I mean, I've invested so much in there. Yeah.
To pay for your funeral costs.
Exactly. Yeah. For my poor family. Anyway, so welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is The Real Review. This is where Matt and I talk about all the ways Joel's probably going to die in the future.
Sure.
Yeah. No, so this is where we like to review films, and Matt and I kind of approach things a little bit differently. Matt tends to be a bit more of the kind of fan perspectives, the fun, good side of things, and I tend to be a bit more of the controlled, uptight, critical type perspective.
Yeah.
I guess is a good way of putting it. Yeah. So, Matt, why don't you give our listeners some great ways to get connected?
That sounds like a wonderful plan, Joel.
Yeah.
So you all can get connected with us a myriad of different ways. First of all, we have a website, realreviewmedia.com, which we update that thing pretty frequently with movie news, reviews, the podcast updates, all that fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can find us on our social media interconnected web universe.
Yep.
Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Real Review Media, facebook.com/Real Review Media.
There it is.
And send us emails, realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
We'd
Make
love
it
to
happen.
hear from you.
That's real, spelled REEL.
This is like a fishing line. That was my attempt at a fishing line. Didn't work. Much better. Much better.
There you go.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about two films. Ingrid Goes West, which is a limited release film that came out actually a little while ago.
It's a sequel to Fievel Goes West.
Yes, not at all.
No?
No, not at all.
Okay, well then I'm going to go and be disappointed then, huh?
Yeah, probably. Although I did like Fievel. This is a different type of movie.
Okay.
Completely. No mice were harmed in the making.
Do they sing songs called Somewhere Out There?
No, they sing a song, but it's not anything near that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I did really like Fievel Goes West is probably one of my favorite films. It's actually one of the first films I remember watching, interestingly enough. Yeah, one of the first films. So interesting little tidbit of information on Joel. Yeah.
Hey, Joel.
So we're going to be talking about that film, and then additionally we're going to be talking about Tulip Fever. There was not a lot of good films that came out this weekend.
This was the worst Labor Day weekend in like millennia.
Yeah. Super low amount of people. And even at the movie theater, I saw both of these films sort of as a back-to-back type thing.
Ooh,
and
double
it was,
feature.
Yeah, it was dead. Just completely dead. Most of these auditoriums for both of these films, which is sad because we'll talk about Ingrid, but I was kind of hoping more people would be in there. But they were about equally packed, but it was probably only maybe like 10 other people or something in the theater.
Yikes.
So, yeah, for Labor Day weekend, you'd expect a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into discussing some films.
Let's do it.
Yes. So we're going to start off with Ingrid Goes West. This is a film about an unhinged social media stalker who moves to L.A. and insinuates herself in the life of an Instagram star. It's got a pretty good cast. It's got Aubrey Plaza, Aubrey Plaza, who stars as Ingrid. You've got Elizabeth Olsen, who's Taylor, O'Shea Jackson Jr., who's Dan Pinto, Wyatt Russell, who's Ezra, who's basically the husband of Taylor's character in the film, and then Billy Magnuson, I think it's Magnuson, who plays Nicky, who's the brother of Elizabeth's character, Taylor. So this film is also directed by Matt Spicer, and he's a bit of a newcomer. It's a Neon Studio film, and I personally don't know too much about Neon Studio. I haven't seen a lot of other projects by them up to this point.
Right.
I didn't have a chance to look into too much, but he's a new director, and I think for first outing, he has done a bunch of short films that he's like written and directed and stuff, but they're mostly shorts, and they kind of came over out of the course of 2012 to 2016. This is his first full-length feature as listed on IMDb.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, this is a first film for him in that sense, and I think it's a great outing for a first film. And I think if you're going to start with any type of film, I think as a director, this is a great one to start with, not only because of the film being a good film, and I'll talk about some negatives, but I think overall it was a very positive experience watching this. This is the kind of film I feel like really will bring you close in with a lot of critics and reviewers. You know, he's not starting with kind of like trying to get a film out that just has the mass market appeal type thing. Yeah. This is in a sense it's not an art film, but it's got definitely a different type of message than a lot of the films that are coming out right now. And I think especially for critics, they're going to look at this and say like, wow, this is a great film for this like first time director to kind of come on board and come into the industry. So glad to see that. Yeah. And as for the film itself, it was an interesting thing. You know, I'd seen some previews for this in the past, and the reason that I wanted to go see it was I'd heard some positive buzz about it. And again, there's just not a lot of other really good films that are out right now. And so as soon as I saw it pop up, I was like, oh, hey, I should totally go see that. It's got Aubrey Plaza in it, and we've seen her in a couple different types of roles. And the cool
Legion.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen her kind of really break out of that standard,
like Parks and Rec.
Yeah, Parks and Rec. She was kind of this dark, somber, kind of sarcastic character and a comedic actor by far. And she's definitely over the course of the last little while moved out of that sort of comedic type role more into the darker, dramatic, sort of mentally unstable type roles. And I think it's very fitting for her. I don't know. There's just something about her at times, especially in this film, where you see her and you're like, there's something that's just not clicking. Yeah. Quite the same way as it would for maybe a normal everyday person to approach something. And I think in talking about the film as a whole, one of the things that I love so much about this film is it was a very satirical type film. It's not taking itself super seriously, but it is at the same time. Did you ever see that film, Thank You for Smoking?
No, Aaron Eckhart, right?
Yes,
no,
Aaron Eckhart. So that film basically tells a story of a guy that's hired to defend sort of the cigarette industry and the tobacco industry. And he plays this guy, and he's kind of this smarmy guy, but he makes a lot of really good points throughout the course of it. It's very satirical in the sense of where our culture is. This film is similar in that way. It satires very heavily sort of two things. One, the constant desire and need of our culture to be very socially connected, to constantly be posting things on Instagram and trying to get likes and, you know, let me take a selfie type culture, that constant need for gratification and attention through social media. So it satires that. Then in addition, it satires just our culture, kind of like the very hipster sort of postmodern culture. It very much satires that in very subtle ways. And I think that's why I loved it so much. It even in the way that the characters sort of interact with each other. Elizabeth Olsen's character Taylor plays this like social media girl where she's like super popular on social media, and she's got like 150,000 followers on Instagram, and she's always posting things, and you can tell that she's kind of like using that to like try and build up a bigger and bigger following all the time. And it's kind of like she lives this sense of like, oh my gosh, that's just so fabulous. Like, wow. And she's just putting up this face all the time where she's just trying to pretend like everything is just so awesome and cool. And you can tell though that she's at the same time, she's using that to manipulate people. Yeah. And Aubrey falls in love with those types of people. You know, she's this stalker character that when she gets around that lifestyle, she desires to be that. She wants to be that. And she falls in love with that fake person that she sees on the social media. And this film could have very easily also gone more towards a darker sort of horrific style tale. But they did a very good job of floating this fine line between sort of the humorous, satirical way of satiring that culture, but also almost being a little bit unnerving and unsettling because she is a bit mentally unthare.
Crazy, yeah.
I mean, they have this scene at the very beginning, which kind of immediately kind of tells you what sort of person she is. And I'm not going to spoil too much here, but Ingrid, Aubrey Plaza's character, keep saying Aubrey. Aubrey.
Yeah. Aubrey.
Ingrid, her mother just passed away, and she was not invited to this wedding. And she goes to the wedding, and she's like watching it get updated on social media, and you can see she's just watching it. And so at the beginning, she like goes to this wedding, and she's like wearing like a sweatshirt. And
that was in the trailer.
And she's wearing like a dress, and you think that like she hasn't been like invited, or like she got disinvited to this wedding or something like that. And then she pepper sprays the bride, and she's like, this is what you get basically for not inviting me. And so she like pepper sprays the girl, and you think that like, wow, they must have had some huge falling out or something like that. But then like later on, one of the person makes a comment, it's like, you didn't even invite her. Like she was expecting to be invited to the wedding, and she never got invited. So you realize that she's just that mentally unstable, that she sort of expects to have been invited, and she never got invited. And because of that, she was willing to go to the extremes of pepper spraying the poor bride.
Wow.
You know,
that is some extreme like commentary on, a lot of that reminds me, all of that reminds me of the Black Mirror episode with Bryce Dallas Howard's character. She's going to a wedding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very similar to that episode.
And it's all about like gaining likes and the social media aspect of just your interaction with people and how crazy it can make you, especially her character in that. I know it doesn't go that far.
Right.
But
close.
It just reminds me of that so much.
I think the biggest difference is obviously that's a future. Like in that, it's a completely sort of different future in an otherwise normal world. There's some technology things and stuff that exist that make that type of lifestyle possible in Black Mirror. But if you want a good example of kind of the idea behind this episode or this movie, that's a great way to get into it. And I think what it did so effectively at times is it when you get into a movie and there's like that want to make you squirm because it's kind of like The Office. It's like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
like
it's
Michael Scott's saying stuff he shouldn't be saying to people.
This movie's like that, but not in a way because he's just doing something that's so just stupid, that he's put himself in this bad place, but because she's doing something that's just really uncomfortable. And so you're kind of squirming and you're laughing at it out of like that. Yeah, like you're like
nervous.
Yeah, like a nervous laughter. But then you actually find yourself like laughing at it because of how ridiculous in a way it is. And at the same time, it leaves you with this sense, and I don't want to spoil the ending to this movie at all because I think it leaves you with a lot of questions,
cool.
Maybe about our culture, maybe about who I am. But it leaves you with the sense of like, well, maybe I should think about that. And maybe I should think, and I could definitely feel some people maybe getting upset about this movie because they feel like it didn't go far enough because it didn't go into that whole like horrific,
right.
She doesn't really, it's not like people end up murdering each other or torturing each other or anything like that because it didn't really go in that direction. But I think that would have been a disservice to the satire because this becomes a much more real satire in a sense. You could actually see something like this more or less happening. She moves out so at the beginning of the film, after the wedding stuff, she moves out to LA after she sees this girl in the magazine, Elizabeth Olsen. She sees her and she basically becomes the new target of Ingrid's sort of, desire to copy. And so she moves out to LA. She takes some money that she gets from her mom she left her in her will, and she moves out there and she sort of figures out this process and this way of like pulling herself into Taylor's life and becoming important to her. And she becomes effective enough at sort of hiding that stalkerish tendency because she knows that's not normal.
Yeah, okay.
And she becomes
She's
effective.
aware of that.
Right, she's aware of it. And it's funny, it's almost painful because when she first approaches Taylor, you can tell that she's not there yet. And it turns into this really awkward scenario and it's hilarious. And then this guy who is played by O'Shea Jackson, who's kind of the landlord for the room that she ends up renting. In the film, his name is Dan. He plays such an amazing character. So he's this wannabe screenwriter guy that is obsessed with Batman.
Okay.
And it's just hilarious because they use Batman perfectly throughout the thing. Like she uses it as Ingrid ends up using that as a manipulative tool to get him to because he kind of falls in love with her and really becomes interested. And she uses that at times to manipulate him. As a sociopath would do, they are very effective at knowing how to like find people's like things they like and hot button topics,
right? And
using that to like manipulate people. And she does that. And so she manipulates him, and then she kind of gets in and the film's building and everything, and you can tell there's going to be a break at some point in the relationship that Ingrid has with Taylor.
There are hints of that in the trailer.
Right,
Yeah.
and you're kind of building towards it, and you're wondering what's going to happen, and there's some really funny, humorous type moments that are kind of going on and happening throughout the course thing. There's a really awkward lovemaking scene between her and Dan, Ingrid and Dan, and it's one of the funniest, weirdest, again, very much laughing I shouldn't be laughing at how awkward this is, but again, she embraces the Batman type stuff, so okay. I don't want to go into too much detail there. But as she's getting closer to Taylor, you can start to see where there's some cracks in her personality, some cracks and flaws in who she is. And then some cracks start to form in the relationship that she has with Ingrid, because Ingrid's using Taylor, and Taylor likes that attention. But the moment that something better comes along where she can use the attention to further her, career as this socialite type person on the internet, on Instagram, then she jumps on that. And then Ingrid's left with, what the crud? Yeah. And so it's very interesting to see that kind of building. And then part of the way through, her brother Nicky, who's played by Bill Magnuson, I'm not sure. He comes into the picture, and I loved this guy. I hated him, but I loved him at the same time. He plays this really smarmy, cocksure, very muscle, obviously frat boy-y kind of guy that's grown up a little bit, who's just smart enough to be dangerous. He's not stupid, but he wants to be stupid. He's never grown out of his adolescence. Right. And so he's always going around flexing his muscles and being oh, look how buff I am. But he's smart enough to figure out, and they show this in the trailer, how to get in, how to trick people and how to manipulate people like his sister, but in a much more smarmy way to get what he wants. And he uses his good looks, and so they're very, and that's one of the reasons why it's so great. Every character in this film makes sense. You could see these type of people in real life. He and her take after each other, him, brother and sister. They love each other, and they both use that manipulative type tactic to kind of get what they want. He just does it in a worse way, in a sense. And then there's the husband character, which is important to the film, but he's more of sort of a backseat type character, Taylor's husband. Yeah. But you can tell that in and of itself, he's also sort of a victim of this girl Taylor and kind of the way that Taylor wants to be and act. But he embraces that sort of that lifestyle. It's interesting because I think in our modern day culture, it has a social commentary aspect of what kind of front, what kind of, we put ourselves out there for people to look at us a certain way. And I'm not attacking, hopefully I'm not coming across like I'm attacking anybody. And I don't think this film necessarily attacks anybody as well. It really just sort of attacks that mindset of manipulating people into getting them to do what you want through very false means, through Instagram, through social media, putting up false fronts and everything like that. But then,
Littlefinger. Yeah,
but I don't want to discuss again the end because there's some real presentation, I think, of the theme of the entire movie comes through at the very end. Okay. When you see sort of the way it plays out and what happens with the different characters, and you get a sense of oh, that's what all this was sort of leading to. That's what I needed to kind of maybe think about a little bit. Okay. Because it's presenting, again, those two ideas of social media and then also sort of the way that we present ourselves in culture. Yeah. And so I just really, I don't want to go too much more into it. I think the humor was funny as well and original. The awkwardness was definitely there, but even at times, just the way that people would do things and interact with each other. The girl Taylor, played by Elizabeth Olsen, she was just perfect for this role. She's oh my God,
I was going to ask because
perfect.
Almost right away, I didn't recognize that it was Elizabeth Olsen. Yeah. Because everything I've seen her in recently, she has brown hair.
Right, because she's in the Avengers and everything
she's in
that.
The Avengers, she's in Wind River, she's in Godzilla. Right. And so I was oh, okay, yeah. And then I saw it and I was okay.
She plays such an amazing, hipstery type character. Instagram star. And it's it's perfect. And, again, I'm not trying to attack anybody, but I think satire asks questions of you. Right. And that's what I like so much about satire, but it does it in a very funny, you could just watch this film and enjoy the characters and enjoy the crazy kind of awkward, squirming nature of it and humor of it. And it progresses well. But you can also get some really good questions out of it. And I wish more films were coming out like this.
Well, it's got a 87% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's doing really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, and out of all the films that I think that have come out over the summer, again, this is limited release, so it's not going to be everywhere. I would just really encourage people, if they get a chance when it comes out streaming on whatever service, I'm sure it's going to have a bunch of different streaming, places that it's at streaming when it comes out. Definitely check it out and enjoy it. So
it's cool.
It's a satire of social media obsession and hipster culture. Very self-examinatory type film,
Cool.
but in a very fun, engaging, and interesting way. So, rating.
Yeah, give that rate indeed.
I give this one an A.
A.
Yeah, which has
What kind of an
not
A?
been common for us. 94.
94. Wow.
Yeah. So I think some of the weakness.
That's what I gave Baby Driver, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it was enjoyable enough to the point where I was just watching it. I wasn't even taking notes during the film. The soundtrack is perfect at times. I mean, there's a really funny scene where they're driving in the car.
Boys to Men.
No, yeah, Boys to Men. And they're kind of singing with each other. And, Elizabeth Olsen's character is just kind of singing, that they want to be together and they're best friends forever. And then Aubrey's like looking at her and it kind of switches because you can tell she's just kind of enjoying it. But then as soon as Elizabeth Olsen's character is not paying attention, her eyes, even her eyes at times just change into that stalkery, I really want to stay with you.
Okay. Wait. I should point out it's Casey and JoJo.
Oh, Casey and JoJo. Sorry.
Yeah. Not Boys to Men.
Boys to Men. Yeah.
Got to clarify.
Similarly. But yeah, I mean, the way that her face at times just switches from she's putting up a front to stalker intensity mode. It's just beautiful the way that happens at times.
I've always
really
loved
well
you.
directed. Yeah. So definitely go see it. So yeah, 94.
Nice.
Cool. Any thoughts, questions?
No, that's actually cool. I was going to ask about Elizabeth Olsen, but no, it's really cool. She seemed funny in the trailer. Trailer seemed funny. I'll probably check it out.
This is a film that I think everybody that's involved with can be very proud of, very happy with. So hopefully good things to come from Matt Spicer and from Neon Studios, as well as the cast and crew.
Keeping it spicy.
Cool. Then let's move on to a different sort of film, Matt.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about Tulip Fever.
And this is the sequel to Saturday Night Fever.
Not at all.
Oh,
No.
Dang it, I keep getting that wrong.
That would have been much more enjoyable this time. Yeah, I did not have a good time with this film. I'll just say at the get-go.
But there are so many great actors and actresses in this.
That was pretty much it. I mean, all right. So we're talking about Tulip Fever. Let me give a brief synopsis here real quick. So an artist fools. Basically, fools.
Yep, there you go.
An artist falls for a young married woman while he's commissioned to paint her portrait during the tulip mania of 17th century Amsterdam. Got a bunch of people.
Where were you in the tulip mania of Amsterdam, 1770, whatever?
I wasn't born yet.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't even a thought yet, pretty much. It's got Alicia Vikander as Sophia, Dane DeHaan, who we're still hoping for a good film from at some point, as John Van Loos. It's got Christoph Waltz as Cornelius, Holiday Granger as Maria, Jack O'Connell as William, Zach Galifianakis. I don't even know.
Seems like it fits so perfect.
Yeah, I really don't know why they, cast Zach Galifianakis for this, other than they were just trying to, I don't know, put some faces in there. So he plays a character named Garrett. You've got Judi Dench as the abbess. So he's the leader at St. Ursula. It's like a covenant.
It's like M.
Yep. Matthew Morrison, Tom Hollander, Carrie Delevingne. Those are kind of the big names that I'm going to mention. So, what to say about this film? So, visually, decently shot.
I remember when I watched the trailer, I thought that the production design and everything looked really good in the trailer. Like as far as the time period and
production design wise, decent.
Yeah.
But the big I don't know if I want to get into the negatives yet, but there was a sense of modern feel and contextualization to the way that the characters acted, which because of the way that the characters acted and their modern sensibilities made the fact that they were dressed up so perfectly almost funny to me, which was unfortunate.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's like, it would be like everybody dressing up in like, I don't know, these Orthodox clothes and then being like, yo, what's up, bro? How you doing? Like, it's just, it didn't fit because their sensibilities were wrong. So the clothes looked like just playing like these characters.
Like they're
right.
Dress up.
Right. So it's unfortunate because that could have been really good, and it was good for the most part.
Did somebody like show up like Galifianakis and say, "Yo, hey, what's up?"
No, but he's like constantly talking about how he's like a drunkard and how he like looks bad in these paintings. You know what I mean? And like nobody back then would have been like, oh my, I was really drunk when you painted that. That looks, I look very poor when I look very poor in that painting that you have made of me.
Oh my gosh.
And they had like, he was like the guy that stood in for Dane DeHaan.
He's a stand-in.
Dane DeHaan, yeah, he would stand there, and Dane DeHaan would like paint using his body as like a body double type thing. But he was always drunk and stuff. But I think one of the saddest wastes in this film was actually Christoph Waltz's character.
Okay.
So let me ask you this, Matt.
Okay.
Who do you think was the main character of this film, just after seeing the trailer?
Alicia Vikander.
Alicia Vikander. No.
Okay. Dane DeHaan.
No.
Oh, gosh. Zach Galifianakis.
Nope.
Cara
So it's Maria.
Delevingne.
Maria. No, she was in it for like 10 minutes at most. So the main character was Maria.
Who's Maria?
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't even really show up in the trailer. So Maria is this actress named Holiday Granger.
Vikander's on the poster.
Yes, Vikander's
She's the
on
only
poster.
person on the poster.
Right. She spends just as much time or less on screen, I would say, as Holiday Granger is. Holiday Granger is the main character of this film. She's the narrator.
What?
She's the maid and like the assistant of sorts to, she's the maid for Alicia Vikander character and Cornelius's character, played by Christoph Waltz. She ends up becoming the main character of this story, despite her not being anywhere really in the trailer, having any appeal. And
What?
the whole story is told as this kind of flashback, in a sense, of the events that were taking place during the Tulip Fever craze in Amsterdam, which I feel like that in and of itself would have been a much more interesting film of just the Tulip Fever trade. And it was almost like they were trying to do this Les Mis style thing where it was like these people care about each other, but they can't be together because of the money and the social class. And, I need to, because two of the main characters, Dane DeHaan, as well as Maria's love interest throughout the film, Jack O'Connell. They both use the tulip trade as a pretense or as an attempt to try and raise the money to, and I'm going to spoil things in this film. I don't even care.
He's like, I don't even care. It's got a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Exactly. They both use the tulip trade as a means to try to get a fortune built up to take their loved ones with them to a better life, to basically go on to other things.
And get more followers on Instagram.
Right. So Alicia Vikander is married to Christoph Waltz in the film.
Okay.
And Christoph Waltz's character, Cornelius, is completely wasted, as I mentioned. You actually end up feeling really bad for Christoph Waltz's character, Cornelius. And if you watch the trailer, they make it out to almost be like this, Alicia Vikander is like, she's been bought and she's being, harassed and treated horribly, and he's looking down on her and he's forcing her into basically like this life of servitude. That's not like that at all.
Wow.
Christoph Waltz's character Cornelius is this really caring, loving guy that throughout the course of the film, he's even being told by people that are around him, like, send this girl away, because I will say his original reason for maybe marrying her is bad. He wants to have a kid.
Yeah.
He basically wants to have a child to continue on because he's raised his fortune through spices.
Like Matt Spicer.
Right. So, but he picks a girl who was otherwise going to live in an orphanage her entire life, brings her with her, orphan friend to be the servant, and treats her really well. And even though she's not having a kid for him, which that could have been her fault, it could have been his fault.
Right.
Even though they're not having a kid, everybody's telling him, get rid of her. And he's like, no, I love her. I care about her. I want to be with her. And a lot of that is like past issues that he had, but he sticks with it. And it's just, so Alicia Vikander's character, Sophia, ends up falling in love with Dane DeHaan's character, the artist, when he comes in to do the mural of them, which it's the most forced thing ever. It's literally, he shows up, they look at each other. So Sophia and Dane DeHaan's character, Jean, they look at each other and then they're like in love.
They like raise eyebrows at each other.
Yeah, basicly.
And then he paints her at the heart of the ocean.
There's like the awkward, like tense moment. And really so Sophia has this moment where she's like, no, I shouldn't do this. And she says to like, let the guy go. But then one night she's, getting it on with Christoph Waltz's character, Cornelius. And she just suddenly decides, this is not good enough. I need Dane DeHaan. So it's literally while they're having, intercourse with each other, she decides that she needs better intercourse. So she just basically starts cheating on, Cornelius's character.
Whoa.
Right. So you end up more or less hating her after this point, even though
it's weird.
So she just does that. And so they end up hooking up. And then the rest of the time is really about them trying to pretend like, and so not only that, but then partway through the script, for pretty much no reason at all, she's kind of feeling bad for Cornelius. So Sophia is feeling bad for Cornelius because he wants this kid, and he did these things in his past where he feels really bad about them, even though it's really not his fault. And I don't think he did anything all that horrible. Where his wife was pregnant, and he was saying that, because she's dying during the pregnancy, he's like, please at least save my child.
Right.
And that doesn't sound that bad, right? You know, like I at least want to have my kid. Like, if you have to take the tube, please save my kid, which is horrible. It's a bad decision to have to make, but understandable. But because of that, he's like racked by guilt, and he like opens up about it to Sophia. And so Sophia lies for no reason at all, flat out lies to him and says, I'm pregnant. And so then the next chunk of the film is them trying to pretend like she's actually pregnant when the actual pregnancy is with Maria. And so Maria is like, so Maria's pregnant,
so
and then
crazy.
Willem gets sold off more or less, and he gets like conscripted into the military and shipped off in a boat because he's doing it's all just so like what?
It sounds weird, depressing, and like I don't want to root for the person I thought I was going to be rooting for.
Right, and then 25% of the movie was them just running around. Like them running from here to there, and then running from there to there.
Literally running?
Yeah. Like the characters would be like, walking and running, like moving quickly from like their building to like the Tulip place, or like Sophia going to meet Jean, or Jean going to meet Sophia, or Willem going to meet Maria. It's like literally the characters just walking. There's like 3 scenes where it's like somebody trying to beat somebody to some other location. The end of the film is like, the big, one of the big climaxes is, and there's like 3 climaxes, and none of them are all that interesting. Zach Galifianakis' character has to go pick up these tulips, or this like bulb, which is like this plant that it's the tulip, but it's prior to turning into a flower,
plant,
right? So he has to go pick it up, and it's worth like a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And so instead of allowing Dane DeHaan's character to go pick that up to pay off these debts that he has, they force him to stay in his house while Zach Galifianakis, who's a drunkard, goes and picks these up. And I'm like, can't you just take your entire crew with you to pick up the bulbs? They're like, no, you have to. So of course, Zach ends up getting drunk. And so it's this literally the entire end scene is just about him trying to beat his own like self-consciousness of like being addicted to alcohol. And it has nothing to do with the story.
That's weird.
They never built up anything. And then Cara Delevingne literally was there for like 2 seconds. Her character could have been played by anybody, and it didn't have to have any significance to the plot ever. She stole. So what ends up happening is Willem enters the tulip trade, makes a bunch of money. He's going to go save Maria from the servitude type stuff.
Okay.
Even though she's not really a servitude type thing. She steals the money from Willem.
Yeah.
And then he gets shipped off into... So she takes the money from him, which could have been played by like some little kid or some guy, some mugger could have just taken the money.
I could have taken the money.
Yeah, anybody. You could have. Yeah. So she takes the money from him, and then at the end of the film, she kind of helps Dane DeHaan's character get the money for because the tulip trade fails, like it completely collapses, and she helps to like reinvigorate it.
Is it like Pokemon cards?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that means, but
I don't know either.
Yeah, but so she helps to like reinvigorate the tulip trade, I guess, in a sense, the Pokemon cards.
Sure.
Like everybody's collecting Pokemon cards,
and
and
it's not nearly
it's not as
big
popular. Yeah, like the modern day Beanie Babies was a good example
from back in the day. Yeah,
now it's what are those little dolls? Funko dolls. Those little
Pop.
Funko Pops. Yeah, that's kind of big popular thing right now. So kind of like that. Yeah, but she helps to like restart the trade, so Dane DeHaan character can make a bunch of money. But then that ends up being completely pointless because Zach Galifianakis' character fails. He doesn't make it back in time. So then Sophia, who I already really don't like,
nobody
because
does.
of one, lying to her husband about being pregnant, one, cheating on her husband even though he's treated her very nicely.
She's
for the
not
most
the
part.
main character.
Right? She's not the main character. Decides that finally, after so they set up this. Her and Maria set up this elaborate situation with this fake doctor where they're going to pretend that that Sophia's having a baby, having the baby, even though Maria is, and then at birth switch the baby and pretend like the baby's hers.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So like they're gonna both pretend like Sophia's gonna pretend like she's having a baby. Maria's gonna pretend like she's not. And so they go through the whole thing, and then they pretend like, and again, spoilers here, but Sophia pretends like she died during childbirth.
Oh my gosh.
So Cornelius is left with this gut-wrenching guilt of, so I got my wife pregnant, then she dies during childbirth, and I have the child after he had previously felt like his wife and child had died because of his desire for them to just have the baby at least.
Right.
Because of him saying that. So he gets left with that feeling. So she pretends to be dead. And then after all that's happened, then she suddenly like comes to terms with it and realizes how horrible it is that she's done this. And so she realizes that, and she runs all the way back home after setting up Dane DeHaan's character, goes all the way back home, then looks through the window, sees Cornelius with the baby and goes, crud, I feel really bad about having faked all this, but he looks so happy, and just runs off. So she literally just runs away.
Weird.
She doesn't go back to Dane DeHaan. She doesn't go back to Cornelius. And then the whole truth comes out. Like 5 minutes later, Willem shows up because he'd been sent off, whatever, comes back, and Willem shows up, and Maria's like, oh my gosh, you're back. Where have you been? And she's like, this is your baby. And Cornelius just happens to overhear her explanation of the entire thing. Which I would never. Why would it's like she's in the house with the door open and Cornelius is standing right there and she doesn't even look. So Cornelius leaves, signs over his entire house to them, and it's just kind of this weird like everybody just kind of goes on with their lives.
That's so strange.
So Willem and Maria get the house. Cornelius goes and has kids with some person in like the Andes.
The same place where you get the mints from Olive Garden.
Yeah,
right?
John whatever guy. John Von Loos. He ends up painting a mural after 8 years. Paints a mural in the Abbey where he finally sees that Sophia is there.
Oh my God.
And then when he sees her 8 years later, they just stare at each other and she walks off. So it's like 8 years later, and he's like, and he's still in mourning over this. He's like, oh, I feel bad because I keep seeing her in my paintings. And he's like painting the mural, and she like walks by because she went back to the Abbey, and he like looks down and sees her, and she smiles at him, and he smiles at her, and then she just walks off. It's like, what? It
like doesn't make sense. It sounds like they're trying to make it some sort of like a tragic or tragedy thing, and then it was just like, I don't know.
I don't know. And I probably done a horrible job of explaining this. I'm just trying to talk about how ridiculous the plot was.
10%, Joel.
Story,
it's a 10%.
The story was so discombobbled and misconstructed, and there was no good characters. They tried to give you a couple moments where they talk about like backstories of characters, but it doesn't matter because it's just stupid stuff that they're doing.
Would you say that in the end it doesn't even matter?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't even, and here's the thing. They could have just made this movie to make it like kind of spicy and like, it felt like what they were going for more was like really sultry and like, you know, like, ooh, look at these like hot people. Like, but it's like, one, it's this completely different era where everybody's probably like nasty, horrible breath.
Yeah.
And like they never bathe.
Yeah.
And like all this other stuff. So it's like that's the least like sexy to, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like a soap opera.
They all those big like puffy collars on and everything. It's like, so like there was nothing like sultry about it. So it felt like they were kind of maybe trying to go for that, but because the characters were so stupid and horrible, you don't really care.
Yeah.
Everything was misconstrued. There's a scene, I don't want to go too far into detail this, but Christoph Waltz like has like a I don't know what you would call it, like prior to making love to his wife.
Okay.
He has like a process that he goes through.
Like a ritual?
Like a ritual, yeah. Okay. Where he must talk to parts of his anatomy to like, get his game face on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's like the sense that you get the whole film of like, what? Like what? Why? What? And so like, yeah, he's like game facing and he's like, all right, little buddy, let's do this. We can, and he calls it like his little corporal or something like that. I forget exactly. Yeah, so just like horrible, stupid stuff, man, and just really bad sense of anything.
So you like this one better than Ingrid Goes West?
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
No, this was like the exact opposite. I'm glad that I did see Ingrid. Otherwise, it would have been a really bad weekend for me for film. So overall, I'd say music wasn't that great either. Visual style was good for the most part. I mean, the cinematography was okay, but the weird direction, it was like literally they had like one take for things, and it felt like the second or first AD was like on set and was saying like, okay, you people walk this way and don't look at the camera. And like, so nobody was like really in character even in like the setting
Yeah.
Everybody was like just following like this
hitting their
flat
marks
motion,
or whatever.
hitting their marks sort of a thing. And it's like, okay, we need a basket to like fly from left to right. And so we're going to like do that now. It's hard to explain, but it felt very staged with a lot of stuff. Costuming was good. Like you said, the design, the wardrobe and costuming was good, but that only takes you so far.
Right.
Acting wasn't awful, but there was just stupid characterization. And Cornelius' character, again, was wasted. I never talked about that. This is the last thing I'll say, and we'll rate it. But Christoph Waltz can be an amazing actor.
Yeah.
He was an idiot and stupid and completely just doofusy throughout the entire film. And I felt like they could have gotten a much more, because Christoph Waltz can play a very interesting, kind of silly, fun character.
Yeah.
An otherwise very somber film. But he just played like he just came across as being really stupid. Really dumb.
Well.
So it would have actually been better if they had switched Christoph with Zach, I felt like, because Zach plays a much better character of what Cornelius was, but he didn't fit within the tone of the film because the whole film was trying to go for a very serious, somber type dark thing.
That's crazy.
So, yeah.
I don't get it.
I give this film an F.
F? What kind of an F?
Give it a 47.
Ooh, 47. Yeah.
I wish there'd been something there for me to hold on to, but there really wasn't too much. It is a pretty low rating, even for saying that the cinematography was decent, but it really doesn't deserve a whole lot of credit for that. I mean, it felt like it could have been a made-for-TV movie for sure.
Gotcha.
So it was slightly better quality to the actual film. So there you go.
Wow.
Awesome. Any other thoughts, questions?
No. I will not be rushing to the theaters to see this movie.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to make it anywhere. So, I mean, we talked about it last thing.
It's gone.
That this could have been, it looked like they were trying to make it into this film that would do like an Oscar run, but the story and plot and everything was so horrible that there's no way it could have even approached it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up on the podcast. Some good ways to get connected again. Check out our website, realreviewmedia.com. You can also check us out on Facebook, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. In addition, you can email us at realreviewmedia@gmail.com. And then we'd love to connect you on Instagram at realreviewmedia after I spent all this time talking about our social media addiction on Ingrid.
Joel, you're canceling your Instagram account when you get off the air?
I've already done it.
Okay, it's gone.
I canceled it, suspended it.
Okay,
it's
cool.
all gone. Yeah. Not really. So we'd love to have you follow us there and check out what we got going on. So feel free to do so.
Do it.
All right. Anything else, Matt?
No, that's it.
All right. It's been real.
It's been real.